Okay, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to touch on the Titan tank again. Bottom line up front, the issue is the diesel exhaust fluid tank and the Titan tank, they touch. And I have, for the most part, resolved it after several attempts, and I'm going to get to that, but for the most part, I think it's resolved. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, right? You can see in this video, in this picture here, that the Titan tank and the diesel exhaust fluid tank, they touch. The overall bulk of the tank, they don't. See this? This is the Titan tank. This is the DEF tank. There's about a quarter-inch gap here, right? But the problem is at the corner, the top corner of the diesel exhaust fluid tank. It's where the diesel exhaust fluid flows into, and it's got this bulge. You can see that it bulges here, and it touches the Titan tank. And that is concerning to me because over time, it'll rub, and eventually one of the two tanks is going to give, right? It's going to rub so much where it's just going to cause a leak. Over time, I'm not saying it's going to do it right now because it's not. Kind of like the Grand Canyon. Over time, the water cut through the rock, right? And for anyone that says, well, the two plastics, nothing's going to happen. Well, then explain to me how that water cuts through rock. I'm waiting. Anybody? That's what I thought. So, when two hard materials are rubbing up against each other, one of them is going to give over time, or both, right? Not only that, as we drive in the elements, material gets in between here, like little dusts. You see the dusts, little sand and whatever, that'll get in there and cause more friction and could cause an accelerated wear that over time will eat into one of the two tanks or both. So what I did was I unbolted the DEF tank, and I moved the diesel exhaust fluid tank back about half an inch. And then I tightened it back down. But the problem is the way the strap is on the diesel exhaust fluid tank, as you tighten down, it pushes the tank forward. It pushes it back because it's got these grooves, right, that help align the tank in the mounting position. There's some give, but it's not a lot, right? So at first, I moved it back, I tightened it down, I checked, there was a little bit of gap, but it was okay. And then I drove around for about a week, and then it was back to touching, right? Because the tank had moved back. At least that's what I assumed. So what I did was I bolted again, I moved the tank back, I bolted it back down, and then with my hand, I pressed here. I put pressure here, and what happened? The tank slid back into this position and was touching the Titan tank again. So I was like, okay, this is a problem, right? So I again did the same thing, unbolted it, but I moved it back a little bit, not as much as before, just a little bit, and then tightened it back down. But then after like, a week or so or whatever, it moved back into its position. So earlier this week, or late last week into this week, because it's Monday now, I had unbolted the tank and I moved it back like very little, like maybe a quarter of an inch. I mean a quarter of an inch from like here, right? I have a quarter-inch gap. And so I checked the tank. I think I did that, I don't know, Friday or something. But I checked the tank again yesterday, Sunday. And that quarter-inch gap reduced to about an eighth of an inch. So I now have an eighth of an inch gap between the tank and between the two tanks. And I checked it again today, and it's still roughly about an eighth of an inch, maybe less than that, but still there's a slight gap. So it worked for the most part. I'm gonna, and yes, I was driving, this past weekend, did some driving, went to church, all that kind of stuff, so the tank was outside. It's gonna expand. That's the thing. The tank will expand, right? And that's the thing I noticed that when I checked it yesterday, after it'd been out in the sun all day, we were driving around all day. The tank had expanded. The Titan tank had expanded, and instead of an eighth of an inch gap, it was probably less than that. I mean, maybe like a millimeter. I mean, I was able to slide a piece of paper in between without it touching. That was the extent of the gap, right? I mean, well, you know what I mean. it was very small. But then when I woke up this morning, I went to go check after the truck's been sitting at night. Um, there's again an eighth of an inch gap. So I think I've solved it, and I'll go through that. I've taken some pictures. Oh, here's some more. You can see here how low the tank. I mean, you can see, right? The tank is sagging in the front. I mean, that's a full like inch and a quarter of drop versus here, right? So, anyways, this is another picture, by the way, from someone else on one of the forums, and his tank hangs really low too. I mean, you can see the gap, but it's kind of uniform across, right? But it hangs really low. He has about 11 inches of clearance, at least per his post. But anyways, that's a video. Okay, so you see that when I moved the tank back, that bulge was rubbing into the tank. You can see it right there, right? And that's concerning. That's only been like a few weeks worth, or like a month or so of having the tank. That's an issue, right? You see right there, there's like a eighth of an inch gap. I might have a better picture. Hold on. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the best. But you can see that's literally maybe about an eighth of an inch. It's not much, but it's a gap nonetheless. The tanks aren't touching. And again, yesterday when I was driving around, it was out in the hot sun here in South Carolina. The tank did expand, and this gap was significantly reduced, but the tanks weren't touching. I was able to slide like a piece of paper through here without any interference, right? No restrictions or anything. So there, it was about, I would say it's about a millimeter, centimeter, or whatever worth of a gap. Very, very small. So yeah, and there's another picture, right? You can see that, the time when the two tanks were touching, you can see it's already beginning to dig away, right, into the tank, make its groove. It's making making it's making its imprint on the tank, right? And that is definitely concerning. Let me see if I can get in. I try to take some photos and it just didn't work out. So yeah, because it's hard to get lighting and whatever in there, but you can see that there is a gap. So for those of you who have the Titan tank on a fourth or 4.5, fifth gen RAM, whatever, with the crew cab short bed, you may have a gap between the two tanks, right? Like here, right? The bulk of the tank, right? But just go up a little bit and look at the bulge at the diesel exhaust fluid tank. This bulge right here, see how it bulges right there? Look at that. And make sure they're not touching. If they are touching, what I did was unbolt the diesel exhaust fluid tank and I moved it back about a quarter inch. It wasn't much, but that was enough where I could tighten it down without the strap, when you tighten it down, pushing the tank back. So far so good. It's only been like a couple of days since I've done this, and so far so good. Whereas before, like I would tighten it down and like go out and drive immediately and come back, and they were touching. So hopefully this is good information for some. Those who have a crew cab short bed with the 52-gallon Titan tank. And yes, I am still very much contemplating buying the SMD fuel tank. I called them. They said that they're on back order, but they should have more tanks here in like the next week or so. I mean, that's what they say, but we'll see what actually happens. But anyways, all right, that's it for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.